Are you looking for practical and insightful advice on how to improve your life and become a better person? If so, you've come to the right place. In today's fast-paced and complex world, it can be challenging to navigate the ups and downs of life and find true happiness and fulfillment. That's where Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life comes in. In this video, we'll explore the 12 rules outlined in Peterson's book and provide detailed insights and examples for each one. By the end of this video, you'll have a solid understanding of the principles that can help you become more resilient, responsible, and fulfilled in your daily life. And if you find this video helpful, we encourage you to subscribe to our channel for more content like this. Our goal is to provide practical and actionable advice that can help you lead a more meaningful and fulfilling life. So, without further ado, let's dive into Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life. Jordan Peterson is a Canadian clinical psychologist, cultural critic, and professor of psychology at the University of Toronto. He is widely known for his controversial and thought-provoking ideas on topics such as political correctness, identity politics, and gender roles. In his book, 12 Rules for Life, An Antidote to Chaos, Peterson outlines a set of guiding principles for personal and societal improvement. The book has become a bestseller and has been praised for its practical advice on how to navigate the complexities of life in the modern world. First, we will talk about Rule 1. Stand up straight with your shoulders back. The first rule in Peterson's book is to stand up straight with your shoulders back. This rule is based on the idea that body language affects how we feel and how others perceive us. When we stand tall with our shoulders back, we convey confidence and assertiveness. This, in turn, can help us to feel more confident and assertive in our interactions with others. Peterson also connects this rule to the concept of dominance hierarchies. In the animal kingdom, dominance hierarchies are a way of establishing social order. Peterson argues that humans have similar hierarchies, and that our ability to navigate these hierarchies is crucial for success in life. An example of this rule in action is the way that athletes prepare for competition. Before a game or match, athletes often engage in rituals that involve standing tall, taking deep breaths, and focusing their minds. This helps them to feel more confident and ready to perform at their best. Now we will talk about Rule 2. Treat yourself like someone you are responsible for helping. The second rule in Peterson's book is to treat yourself like someone you are responsible for helping. This rule is based on the idea that many people neglect themselves and their own needs, often putting the needs of others first. Peterson argues that we need to take care of ourselves first in order to be able to help others effectively. This means making sure that we are getting enough sleep, exercise, and healthy food, as well as taking care of our mental health. One example of this rule in action is the way that people often neglect their own health in order to take care of others. For example, a parent might put off going to the doctor for their own health issues in order to take care of their children. Peterson argues that this is not a sustainable approach, and that we need to prioritize our own well-being in order to be able to help others effectively. Now we will talk about Rule 3. Make friends with people who want the best for you. The third rule in Peterson's book is to make friends with people who want the best for you. This rule is based on the idea that the people we surround ourselves with can have a big impact on our lives. Peterson argues that we should seek out friends who are supportive, encouraging, and positive influences in our lives. This means avoiding people who are toxic, negative, or who bring us down. An example of this rule in action is the way that people often stay in toxic relationships or friendships because they feel like they have to. Peterson argues that this is not a healthy approach, and that we need to surround ourselves with people who lift us up and encourage us to be our best selves. Now we will talk about Rule 4. Compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not to who someone else is today. The fourth rule in Peterson's book is to compare yourself to who you were yesterday, not to who someone else is today. This rule is based on the idea that comparison is often a source of unhappiness and dissatisfaction. Peterson argues that we should focus on our own progress and growth, rather than comparing ourselves to others. By focusing on our own development, we can avoid feelings of envy and jealousy and feel more satisfied with our own lives. One example of this rule in action is the way that people often compare themselves to others on social media. Seeing others' seemingly perfect lives and accomplishments can lead to feelings of inadequacy and dissatisfaction. Peterson argues that we should focus on our own progress and development, rather than comparing ourselves to others. Now we will talk about Rule 5. Do not let your children do anything that makes you dislike them. The fifth rule in Peterson's book is to, do not let your children do anything that makes you dislike them. This rule is based on the idea that parents have a responsibility to raise their children to be responsible, respectful, and well-behaved members of society. Peterson argues that parents need to set clear boundaries and expectations for their children, and enforce those boundaries consistently. By doing so, parents can help their children to develop self-discipline and respect for authority, which can serve them well throughout their lives. An example of this rule in action is the way that parents often struggle to discipline their children effectively. Peterson argues that parents need to be firm and consistent in setting boundaries and enforcing consequences, in order to help their children develop into responsible adults. Now we will talk about Rule 6. Set your house in perfect order before you criticize the world. The sixth rule in Peterson's book is to, set your house in perfect order before you criticize the world. This rule is based on the idea that we should focus on improving ourselves in our own lives before criticizing others or trying to change the world. Peterson argues that we all have areas of our lives that could use improvement, and that by focusing on those areas and making changes, we can become better individuals and contribute positively to society. One example of this rule in action is the way that people often engage in political activism without first taking responsibility for their own lives. Peterson argues that by first improving ourselves in our own circumstances, we can become more effective agents of change in the world. Now we will talk about Rule 7. Pursue what is meaningful, not what is expedient. The seventh rule in Peterson's book is to, pursue what is meaningful, not what is expedient. This rule is based on the idea that we should prioritize the things that give our lives meaning and purpose, rather than simply pursuing short-term pleasures or comforts. Peterson argues that by pursuing what is meaningful, we can find fulfillment and purpose in our lives, which can lead to greater happiness and well-being. One example of this rule in action is the way that people often prioritize their careers or material possessions over their relationships or personal growth. Peterson argues that by prioritizing what is truly meaningful, we can find greater fulfillment and happiness in our lives. Now we will talk about Rule 8. Tell the truth, or, at least, don't lie. The eighth rule in Peterson's book is to, tell the truth, or, at least, don't lie. This rule is based on the idea that honesty is a crucial component of personal and societal well-being. Peterson argues that by being honest with ourselves and with others, we can build trust and establish meaningful connections with those around us. Conversely, dishonesty can lead to feelings of guilt, shame, and mistrust, and can ultimately damage our relationships and our own sense of self-worth. An example of this rule in action is the way that people often lie to themselves or others in order to avoid difficult truths or confrontations. Peterson argues that by being honest, even when it is uncomfortable or difficult, we can ultimately build stronger relationships and lead more fulfilling lives. Now we will talk about Rule 9. Assume that the person you are listening to might know something that we can learn from others, even those who may hold different beliefs or perspectives from our own. Peterson argues that by assuming that the person we are listening to might know something, we can approach conversations and interactions with a sense of curiosity and openness, rather than defensiveness or hostility. One example of this rule in action is the way that people often engage in debates or discussions with the goal of proving their own point or winning an argument, rather than truly listening to and considering the perspectives of others. Peterson argues that by assuming that others might have something valuable to offer, we can engage in more meaningful and productive conversations. Now we will talk about Rule 10. Be precise in your speech. The 10th rule in Peterson's book is to be precise in your speech. This rule is based on the idea that clear and precise communication is essential for effective relationships and social interactions. Peterson argues that by being precise in our speech, we can avoid misunderstandings and miscommunications, and ensure that our intentions and messages are accurately conveyed. One example of this rule in action is the way that people often use vague or ambiguous language, which can lead to confusion or misunderstandings. Peterson argues that by being precise in our language, we can communicate more effectively and build stronger relationships with others. Now we will talk about Rule 11. Do not bother children when they are skateboarding. The 11th rule in Peterson's book is to do not bother children when they are skateboarding. This rule is based on the idea that children need opportunities to take risks and explore the world on their own terms, without undue interference or micromanagement from adults. Peterson argues that by allowing children to engage in activities like skateboarding, we can help them develop independence, self-confidence, and resilience. One example of this rule in action is the way that parents often try to shield their children from all risks and potential dangers, in an effort to keep them safe. Peterson argues that by allowing children to take reasonable risks and learn from their experiences, we can help them to become more capable and self-reliant individuals. Now we will talk about Rule 12. Pet a cat when you encounter one on the street. The final rule in Peterson's book is to pet a cat when you encounter one on the street. This rule is based on the idea that we should appreciate and enjoy the simple pleasures and joys of life, even amidst the challenges and difficulties we may face. Peterson argues that by taking time to appreciate and enjoy small moments of happiness, we can cultivate a sense of gratitude and positivity, which can help us to weather the challenges and stresses of daily life. One example of this rule in action is the way that people often become so focused on their goals and ambitions that they forget to appreciate the small joys and pleasures of everyday life. Peterson argues that by taking time to appreciate and enjoy simple pleasures, like petting a cat on the street, we can cultivate greater happiness and contentment in our lives. In conclusion, Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life offers a compelling and thought-provoking approach to personal growth and development. By focusing on principles like personal responsibility, honesty, and humility, Peterson offers a roadmap for individuals seeking to lead more fulfilling and meaningful lives. While not all of Peterson's ideas may resonate with every reader, his book offers a valuable perspective on the importance of taking responsibility for our own lives and pursuing what is truly meaningful and fulfilling. By following these 12 rules, readers can cultivate greater happiness, resilience, and personal growth, and become more effective contributors to society as a whole.